Well, on the vertical scale, we have the extent in uh, square kilometers, and the numbers are multiplied by 1 million. So it'd be like from 12 million to 16 million square kilometers is the extent.
Okay.
And on the horizontal, we see the period from February through May. And the purple line at the top is the mean for the decade of the 1980s. The slightly darker blue is the mean for the 1990s. The lighter blue is the mean for the 2000s. And the white line is the mean for the 2010s concurrently. Well, actually, to 20. And then the current is 2020 in the, I guess, kind of orangey yellow.
Right.
And the dots they all show the same day at some point within the first week of April. And you can see all the very lightly faint lines in the background. Those are some of the other values for in the past. So again, remember the median is what's found at the 50th percentile. And what we're basically seeing is that sea ice extent has decreased over 4 decades. This graph clearly shows it.
It does, plainly.
And going from, let's just take usually the peak in March, which is the ocean's winter, the middle of the ocean's winter, because of specific heat of water. And you look in March in the 1980s, it was about 15.5 million square kilometers. Go the next decade, it drops down to about 15, maybe not quite 15, then 14.5 for the 2000s, and then in the down to the 2010s, this goes further. I mean, it just keeps going down, down, down. Now, what this is showing is that, and we discussed this earlier, how at the beginning part of this winter, especially from February, January and February, the sea ice, thanks to that very cold December, January, was above the median. But
Hmm.
then look what happened come about third week in March. It slammed right below.
Yeah, it's a stock drop. So what
the,
happens?
the very sharp drop.
Yeah.
Uh, Basically, the Arctic Oscillation shifted into the negative mode.
Okay. And it's pretty dramatic based on the drop.
Even though we're still kind of cool here, and the projections are for a late melt out and not very warm spring here, it changed the airflow and it got the warmth significant enough to cause the sea ice to retreat.
Wow.
But that graphic is an excellent summation of 4 decades of sea ice data.
And you can really see each decade is progressively
Yeah,
thinner and
it's almost like
less.
parallel lines, parallel
It
curves
is.
there. It's like, wow, pretty dramatic.
So right, the orange line you said it was just the year 2020 so far.
That's correct. It's for this year thus far.
Okay, so it's obviously going to take some time to like see where the next, obviously time will tell, decade. It's probably going to be
Right.
under the 2010s, but we'll see.
I mean, as you saw, it started out above the last decade's median and then quickly dropped down.
Yeah, it's that sharp drop that's very interesting
Yeah.
because you said it was the negative phase of the Arctic Oscillation has come
The
in.
Arctic Oscillation was in the positive phase for, well, let's see, the 93, 96 days, straight consecutive days. And the longest was 107, 108. I think I'm trying to remember the numbers, but it's in that ballpark. So we had a pretty long stretch of a positive Arctic Oscillation. Not only was it positive, it was really positive. I mean, some of
Right, you could
the
see
highest
that.
values ever calculated. So so that accounted helps explain some of the ice conditions because you had the cold air temperature. You had basically the vortex centered right over Alaska and the Yukon.
And
And
that's an extreme in itself, correct? In a way?
it's because of how tight and how small and local and centralized this was. Yeah, Because look at the rest of the Arctic Basin, Eurasian side, Scandinavian side. It was warm as all hell over there.
Mhm.
But
Jeez.
it just parked itself right over good old Alaska. and,
You
and
got
the
a
Yukon.
winter
Oh
vortex.
boy, yeah.
You're
I've
still
been, I've
dealing
been,
with a pretty frigid temperatures, right?
yeah. It's we had wet, heavy snow over the weekend, and it's just been a mess. I got like no more place to put the stuff. I'm still sawing the snow between the buildings up. So
Oh wow.
it's like, yeah, if I'm making igloo block, where the hell am I gonna put this stuff?
That's the thing, is it's too much accumulating.
Yeah,
What are you gonna
yeah. When breakup finally does come later this
do?
spring, everything's gonna be flooded.
I was just about to ask. That's probably the consequence of all this. If it gets
You,
so hot in the summer, right? We're gonna see what happens
well,
to
see,
the
this
Arctic.
is the thing. I mean, the interior Alaska is actually classified as semi-arid. And usually April, although this April not so far, usually April is the driest month of the year in interior Alaska. Like
Okay.
it's just like, yes, no more snow. It's dry. It's warm. A lot of the snow will sublimate, so it doesn't move, so it skips the liquid bit. Just goes from solids, which is great. I don't think it's going to happen because it's going to warm up so slowly. It's going to melt, and it's going to be. I need to get the canoes and kayaks out.
Oh my God. Is this gonna lead to more coastal erosion in a way?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Just another
and
consequence.
and with the summer, yeah, if the summer is dry, of course that then increases the risk of forest fires. Although
Yeah.
my my guess would be that with the huge snowpack we've had and the amount of snow, that and if it's a slow melt, the ground will be wet enough that forest fires should be at a minimum.